and we will be moving next to the Selectmen's portion. There are 3 candidates for 2 3-year openings or 3-year positions on the Board of Selectmen, and there are 2 candidates for a 1-year term, which is open due to the resignation of Democratic Town Committee member Lee Emery. So all 5 candidates will be in the same group. We're not distinguishing between them in terms of the speaking order and the questions. And so we will be starting with the opening statements. And the first candidate for Selectman will be Patrick Welsh. Patrick, you're up.
I'd like to thank the Westborough Democratic Town Committee and Westborough TV for this opportunity to speak directly to the voters. I am running for the 1-year board seat. I am a proud son of a career Army veteran, and prior to moving to Westborough, I lived in several locations in and out of the United States. I am a 38-year resident of the town, graduating from Westborough High in 1987. I met my wife, Julia, at Westborough High. We are proud parents of 3 fifth-generation graduates of Westborough High and are now blessed with 2 young granddaughters. We live over near Lake Chauncey, where we personally hand-built our home while we were raising our family. After I graduated from high school, I went on to New England School of Photography, where I studied photojournalism and technical color. I worked at several small businesses in town in the 80s and 90s, and in 1999, I made the move to EMC and have been there ever since. During my time at Dell EMC, I led international program management offices across 3 continents with upwards of 40 program managers. The team was responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in engineering testing, resulting in significant customer-facing policies and procedures. I have several family members in town that own and operate businesses in town of all sizes, one of which has been in business for over a century. I will work hard to support the needs of all the businesses as they are critical in so many ways. I believe in community service, and throughout the years, I have volunteered in Boy Scouts, Little League, softball, and at the food pantry. I have also volunteered with Habitat for Humanity, the Grafton Community Harvest, and traveled to King Cove, Alaska to build a church bell tower. I am a regular attendee at the annual town meeting and many other various board meetings. COVID has been a challenge for us all, and for this reason, I have decided to run for office. I appreciate the encouragement of many past and present board members to run for the board, and I've spent my time campaigning over the past few months, reaching out across town departments, clubs, and citizens, listening to better understand the many great opportunities we have. I will bring new ideas and perspectives to the board while delicately balancing preservation and innovation. My style as an effective selectman will be courteous as we all collaborate towards compromises that are in the best interest of the town and its residents. I will make decisions based on fact, data, and logic, and vote my conscience as we do the hard work of setting policy. I love this town, and I will do my best to represent all.
Thank you. Shelby Marshall is next. Shelby?
Yes, hello, good evening, and thank you so much to the Democratic Committee, Westborough TV, and for all the candidates for being here tonight. It's great to see such competitive races across the board. Just a little bit of background about myself. I grew up in York Harbor, Maine. I graduated from Brown University with a degree in political science, not knowing then that I would find passion in politics. My wife, Gail, and I were married here in Westborough, where we've remained for 25 years. Together, we have a daughter, Grayson, who's a proud 4th grader at Mill Pond School. We own a business here locally called Right at Home, where we take care of those who are aging in place. And we've been doing that since 2007. I have over 20 years of executive level management and client service experience and a strong track record in building collaborative relationships and producing measurable results. As an incumbent selectman for the past 3 years, I have loved being your selectman. I love the work that comes along with it. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time, but I love it. And I've contributed in ways that I think are measurable and have improved the quality of life for those here in Westborough, both residents and businesses. The ways I've specifically contributed are helping to select the strategic plan consultant. I helped save the Spur House. I collaborated on the town manager search committee. I was part of the mitigation negotiation team when DHCD disallowed approved affordable housing over at the Pulte complex. I was one of the leaders in developing our community statement on racism. I helped negotiate our police contract, and I've served on the COVID task force. I want to thank my family and friends, but especially my nearest and toughest critics and supporters, Gail and Grayson, for their support. Without them and the late night allowances, I couldn't do this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, Syed Hashmi is next. Syed.
Thank you to the Democratic Town Committee and for you, the voters, for tuning in to listen to us in these uncertain times. You, the residents of Westborough, my fellow citizens and my fellow neighbors have been at the height of everything I've tried to do as your selectman, such as expanding senior tax relief, advocating for increased mobility and transparency, speaking out against the Eversource pipeline, advocating for us to get involved in municipal vulnerability planning for climate change, and most importantly, passionately advocating to make sure that our town government is inclusive of new ideas and new voices. Via my newsletter and my social media posts, I've tried to ensure accountability and engagement. As a selectman and also as a Board of Health member, I push for weekly meetings of both boards during the height of this pandemic. I also believe I'm the first elected official from Westborough that was elected to the Massachusetts Municipal Association Board. The vantage point of all of these positions has allowed me to gather skills and knowledge that I have been able to leverage to help our community. All of my life, I have acted as a bridge, bringing people from different backgrounds together to unite behind a common goal. This is how we will build a better Westborough together. This year, I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to run again, and what tipped the scales for me is that I have lived through what many of you are living through now: job insecurity, health insecurity, and housing insecurity. The more compelling reason, however, to run was the fact that I'm the person that many of you reach out to when you have been wronged, and protecting you remains my singular mission. I passionately want to make sure that this town, your town, serves each and every one of you. It is why I'm so passionate about resident rights, because I've seen those rights getting trampled on, and it is why I push for a resident Bill of Rights and for a noise protection bylaw. To me, the highest calling of public office is to serve the most vulnerable, to help those who need help, to empower the weak, and to promote our sense of community. I have tried to live up to the privilege of this office by fighting the fights that need to be fought, and to be a champion of lost causes,
Time.
because those are the only causes worth fighting for.
Time.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next is Tom Dolan. Tom?
I echo the sentiments expressed by the other candidates tonight. I'd like to thank you, Kate, and the Westborough Democratic Committee for organizing tonight's event. Thanks for your efforts and your commitment to our town. I would also like to thank Lee Emery for her service to Westborough. Lee exemplifies the qualities of a civic leader engaged in the community, committed to equitable governance. I thank Lee for her service and am mindful of her example as I pursue her seat on the Board of Selectmen. I would also like to thank all of the candidates who are participating in this year's town election. It's great to see so many different names on the ballot. My Westborough roots run deep. I was born and raised in town. I'm a proud graduate of Westborough High School. Go Rangers. After graduating with a bachelor's degree from the Commonwealth College at UMass Amherst, I joined my family's small business here on Route 9. I am vested in our community, and in order for our community to thrive and continue to thrive, we have to act cooperatively and collaborate with our neighbors. As the youngest member participating on tonight's forum, I hope to inspire the next generation of Westborough residents to get more involved and engage in town government. In order to receive the best outcome, we all need to participate. As selectmen, I will foster an inclusive atmosphere, and I invite all of Westborough's residents to voice their concerns. Everyone's voice should be heard. Particular attention needs to be given to help keep Westborough affordable for young families and our seniors. If elected to serve, I will aspire to be a steward of our resources on behalf of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, Sean Keogh. Sean? You're on mute. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Sean Keogh. I learned from my parents through their example they set to give back to the community, which has meant so much to us. I grew up outside Rochester, New York, and when I was in elementary school, my father was on our town school committee. A big issue he faced was school transportation. Back then, if you lived within 1.5 miles of school, you were required to walk. It was very contentious for some parents. I remember one morning him putting on his boots and snow pants and heading out to meet the other members of the school committee to make the 1.5 mile walk to school. It resonated with me that he made the same walk that the children in town made every day before he made his decision. I would also like to thank my mother. She was very active in our local school community, also with the PTA and the women's club and our church, and she stayed well involved into her 70s. Both their examples is part of what brings me here today. As for me, I moved to Westborough with my wife, Kim, in 1994. I previously received a degree from Hamilton College, then a master's from Boston College. I am a chartered financial analyst and have spent 30 years working in the field of financial services. I have 3 boys who've grown up in Westborough and enjoy the Westborough schools and the community and what it has offered. My oldest son, Matthew, is an active duty first lieutenant in the Army. Son Michael is a junior in college, and our youngest Tyler is a sophomore in Westborough High School and very active in theater and music. My wife, Kim, is also very active and has been in special education for 30 years. In closing, I would like to thank Kate, the Democratic Town Committee, and Westborough TV, but also I would like to lend my heartfelt gratitude to Lee Emery for her 27 years in the community working with the Advisory Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. I hope to follow her example as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to move to the question section of our forum. And the order will be Syed, Shelby, Sean, Patrick, and Tom. Can we have the first question? Oh, I see it, sorry. Getting used to this Zoom stuff. Okay, the question is, what do you see as Westborough's most pressing issue once COVID is under control? And what are your thoughts on addressing that issue? And Syed, and if you could just, there was a little feedback the first time, or noise, if you could keep a little bit away from the microphone. So Syed, zero.
Can you hear me better now?
We're not getting the noise, but it's a little faint. So just, I think you're good, just speak loudly.
Okay. So a couple of things. One, I'm not sure COVID is going to be over soon. And I think the economic fallouts from this pandemic will continue, and we need to keep that very much in mind. And so the fallout will be both economic as well as health. But the other things that we are facing are still not going to go away. As you have seen from the recent storms that we've had, climate change is a pressing issue that is facing our town. So we, as we move forward, and speaking right now as we speak, Texas has, people in Texas do not have power. So we are going to need to make sure that we protect first mitigate the effects of climate change and do all that we can to make sure that we develop a resilient infrastructure. But the other issue that is still going to be with us is that our town is also changing, and we need to make sure that all the things that make Westborough remain with us, such as our sense of community, our scenic beauty. These are the things that are worth cherishing, worth fighting, and we need to make sure that we protect them.
Thank you. Shelby's next. Shelby Marshall.
Thank you. So I agree with Selectman Hashmi that there's no magical end date in place for COVID. And with that in mind, we have to continue to move forward. So the work of the selectmen and other and certainly town departments and many other committees continues to be important. We need to continue to press on with the implementation of our strategic plan. We need to see through the development of our master plan. And we need to integrate lots of other things that are already in place, complete streets, the municipal vulnerability work, the climate action plan that will soon be revealed. So our work will continue independent of COVID. How we approach that will be the differentiate will be, will differ based on the rollout of or how COVID progresses. I think it's also important that the Board of Selectmen play a key role here in making sure that we live within our means. It's been said multiple times by multiple individuals tonight about the cost of living in Westborough. So we need to spend wisely, but we still need to invest in our town, and that's a delicate balance. And I think that fiscal responsibility is something that I've demonstrated experience with and adherence to. I also think that I look forward to hearing our climate action plan and the full presentation of that and what that means for long-term planning for Westborough, because I think it does represent economic opportunity. And certainly it's vital to our survival. Finally, I would say that community engagement and communication has never been more important. So as we're living our lives through Zoom and we're isolated, I think it's critically important that the town improve its communications. And I have some specific ideas on how to address that going forward. And I think that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sean Keogh is next. Sean, you're up. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Kate. Yes, I think as we come out of the pandemic, I think one of the critical issues for us will be helping to revitalize our downtown businesses. They have been, some have closed, they are all hurting, and we need to come up with creative solutions to try and help them get beyond this situation. I think additionally, I agree with Shelby that priorities have been given to the Board of Selectmen within the strategic plan, and we need to continue to execute on that strategic plan, and then also support the planning board as the master plan is presented later this year. I think additionally for me, one other key issue is taxes within our town. And it is difficult for many residents to maintain themselves in town with the level of taxes as they've increased. And unfortunately, in the past 10 years, we've gone from roughly 60% residential market value and 40%, industrial, commercial, personal property to this year now over 69% residential and only 31% made up of those other components. And we need to work to get that balance back to what it originally was. This would contribute to a lower tax rate, especially for a lot of the citizens of this town, and I think would be very beneficial to the town as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Welsh. Patrick, you're up. Don't forget to, you got the mute button. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, COVID is our number one challenge. And as Dr. Fauci and many other experts in the medical field have indicated, this is going to be an endemic situation for the next foreseeable future. We're not going to come out of this, unfortunately, anytime soon. Therefore, it is the number one challenge we face. I would echo what some of the previous folks have said in regards to making sure that we continue with our master planning and our strategic planning, and certainly all of the things that the boards have done in regards to our fiscal policies and planning that have been put forth. I would say, to be more specific though, I think there's four things that we really need to do as a town as we move forward, as we get out of this, I'll say, current phase of COVID. First, we need to ensure the safety throughout continued support of vaccine planning and communications by supporting our vaccine teams out there with Chief Laurie and Chief Purcell. Second, we need to support the residents that are struggling financially and emotionally. This has been an incredible hit to our community with the number of deaths now exceeding 60 in our community. Thirdly, we need to get kids back into school. This will lessen the secondary pandemic of school age mental illness that we heard a lot about at this past week's Board of Health meeting. And then fourth, we need to get our businesses make sure they not only survive, but thrive. I think through these four pillars, we'll set Westborough up best to meet the pandemic challenges of the future and get us through the endemic times that we're moving towards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll be moving to question number 2, and I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to put it in the chat. What, with the latest estimates for fiscal year,
Kate's wife.
Excuse me, Kate, I think Tom needs to, is
Oh.
up next. Yep.
I'm sorry. I do apologize. It's not quite the same. Tom, Shelby, thank you. Tom, I apologize for missing you. Tom Dolan, next. Tom, thank you.
Apology accepted. Thank you much for the microphone here. So as far as COVID goes, these problems didn't happen overnight. They won't be solved overnight. It's pretty wild to think we're almost a year into the pandemic here. As far as that goes, the Board of Selectmen needs to empower subject matter experts, especially on our Board of Health and the emergency response teams, to continue to guide us through these challenging times. As far as the Board of Selectmen is concerned, I echo Sean's sentiment in that one of my top priorities will be to keep Westborough affordable to its residents. We have limited resources, and I don't think anybody wants to raise taxes. Money certainly doesn't grow on trees. So in order to pay the bills, we've got to make sure that our businesses thrive here in town. We need to work with existing businesses and make sure that they're empowered to succeed as they come out of COVID and out of quarantine. It's challenging times. We'll have to adapt. And I'd also like to see us continue to attract new businesses, both on the Route 30 strip and encouraging the village vibe downtown, as well as out towards 495. And to that end, I'm excited to see the momentum that the Master Plan Advisory Committee has gained over this last year and a half. They had a very engaging public forum last Thursday. And as selectmen, I hope to empower folks on the Economic Development Committee and other boards in town to make informed decisions that are in the best interest of our entire community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Everybody was very concise in their remarks. And so you've had a preview of the second question, so that's great. So I will read the second question, and then this time we'll have Sean, then Tom, Syed, Shelby, and Patrick. With the latest estimates for fiscal year 22 by the town manager, our tax levy will have an annual average compound growth rate of 4.5%. The purpose of Proposition 2.5 was to limit tax growth to 2.5%. What would you do to reduce the growth in our tax levy to 2.5%? And first, we'll have Sean Keogh. Sean, you're next. Sean, you need to unmute yourself. Thank you, Sean.
Again, thank you. Let me say yes. The Proposition 2.5 is to limit growth in taxes to 2.5% plus growth within the community. So it is not a strict 2.5% limit. But let me say that as a member of the Advisory Finance Committee for the last 5 years, and currently its chair, we have been very focused on maintaining the expenses of the town, looking at the budgets of every single department as they come before us, and then reviewing where potential revenues may come in the future. As I stated in my previous answer, I would say one of the best ways for us to maintain our taxes and hopefully even lower them on a ratio basis is to improve the commercial and industrial development in town, especially over near Route 9 and 495 there. I think there's some potential for us to then bring back a 60-40 ratio of residential to commercial assessed value that should hopefully bring our town's tax rates in by average household by as much as 10%. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, next is Tom Dolan. Tom, you have to unmute yourself.
First time I didn't get the microphone, now I'm not taking it. So it's funny how that goes sometimes. But we have to be mindful of our spending, and similar to Sean, my first answer there was one of my top priorities being to keep Westborough affordable. And we've got to continue to attract new businesses to town. If you look around town with COVID, there are so many vacant office buildings in town. And downtown, a lot of vacant storefronts. And if businesses aren't here to help pitch in and contribute to our town's revenue, then ultimately that's going to fall on our residents. And again, nobody wants to raise taxes. I don't think that's frankly a platform that any candidate could really be running on. So it's got to be businesses, and we got to help folks get out of COVID. And that means working with organizations like the Quarter 9 Chamber of Commerce, other organizations around here that have a pulse on the local business community and have an idea on what businesses need. And that echoes with my earlier sentiment that it's really teamwork. And that's what I view the Board of Selectmen as. It's an organization that facilitates conversations, engages with the community, and empowers folks to make the right decisions, get the right bodies in the right seats. So it's get businesses back and make sure that we work as a team so that everyone can succeed.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, Syed Hashmi. Syed, you're next. Thank you, Syed.
Can you hear me, Kate?
Yes.
So I think one of the things that we are neglecting in this conversation is the fact that the reason so many of your tax rates have gone up is not just because of commercial and real estate, the change in the commercial and real estate values. It's because the state has also not sent money to Westborough before the levels it used to get. So the state funding that we used to get has dropped, even though before that, and it has not kept up with the levels that we were getting before the 2008 crisis. If you look, for instance, at our road funding, it has been consistent at $200 million across the state for the past several years. So one of the things I want to do is make sure we need to mobilize our community to ask for the state funding, especially now in this time of pandemic. Consider the fact that as we transition to a full in-person learning in the schools, our schools are going to need that additional funding. So one of the things that I've done is this morning I released a statement that many of you can reach out to your elected officials to petition them so that we can get $100 per student for our school system, and then also to get additional funding to support infrastructure needs to improve ventilation in our schools. That's one. The second, for the past several years, I've been asking us to look at our fee schedule and look for additional mechanisms to raise revenues in the town, not putting the burden on the taxpayers. The last thing, and this is again something that I've been passionately wanting to look at, is to look at our mitigation process in our town. Consider the fact that at Pulte, we gave up 70 affordable housing units for about $1.3 million. We gave up another 70 housing units for $9 million. There was no transparency in the process, and consider the amount of money Pulte will make. So we as a town need to look at how our planning board is doing its mitigation. Is that mitigation serving the needs of the population, and what can we do to do it better?
Thank you, Syed. Shelby Marshall is next. Shelby.
Sure. So the reality I think that we have to keep focus on, and sometimes people don't want to hear this, is that service, delivering service is what the town does for its business. And that service is provided by people, and those individuals are under contracts, and those contracts, as a nature of their negotiation, go up year over year over year incrementally. Additionally, I think Westborough has prided itself on its infrastructure and its continued maintenance of its infrastructure and investment. And all of that, as we all know, takes money. So I think that it's the speakers before me made some great points about economic recovery. It's a balance of that. We've got to bring in new revenue to the town through business and increasing that ratio that Sean already spoke to. But I think we also have to be honest with ourselves. What level of service do we expect in this town, and what are we willing to pay for? Because in my 3 years, I have never heard anyone say to me, I would like less service. If we want less service, we can pay for less service, but that is not something I want, and it's not something that I think anyone else wants. So I think it's being smart this year. Our town manager, as part of the budget process, and the selectmen are proposing use of free cash to lessen the impact. And I believe the finance committee, although they haven't formally voted on this, are in support of this. To reduce the individual taxpayer impact from 500 plus to around 365 if the governor's budget numbers hold. That's smart use of money that we have and that we've already, nothing is free, as a lot of people say. It's not free cash, but smart use of our reserves and our money is also, a way that we can work through this. But economic development is probably one of the keys to all of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Patrick Welsh. Patrick, don't forget to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, this is a tough question in that, this is a delicate balance that needs to be struck in order to avoid hitting the levy limit. There's no doubt, as one of the previous other candidates mentioned, there's definitely a need to balance our industrial and commercial capability with our residential tax base. That's one way, and that certainly will help. It's not all the story, though. We need to do things by having creative grants and other things that will help support those services in the town. There's no doubt that new growth. We want new growth, right? We want new business, and we certainly don't want to stop people from moving into the town and providing a more vibrant town community by having those new residents in our town. So it's critical that we do our best as a Board of Selectmen to balance that delicate structure between the tax base of industrial, commercial, and residential to help alleviate that Proposition 2.5 threshold. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we're ready for question 3. And that will be Tom Dolan, Sean Keogh, Shelby Marshall, Patrick Welsh, and Syed Hashmi. And the question is, what are your thoughts on a dual tax rate in Westborough and balancing the limited resource of our tax base with the need to maintain and improve services? And with that, Tom Dolan is first. Tom? Tom, don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Kate. A dual tax rate is a interesting, and on the surface, I think it's an exciting idea, but it's a difficult one that I think would be able to implement well and implement fairly. I think it'd be important for folks to utilize existing services that we have in town as far as seniors tax relief programs. And one of the other organizations that I think would also help address limited resources of our tax base and maintaining adequate services would be empowering our affordable housing. Spots like Rogers Road there, and getting some other affordable housing in town. So empowering folks that are already in those seats, existing seats, and making sure that we can all do exactly what we've been doing and do it well.
Okay, thank you. Sean Keogh's next. Sean?
All right, thank you very much. So for a long time, Westborough has had a single tax rate. I think it has been effective in bringing business to Westborough. The unfortunate part of switching to a dual tax rate is once you make that change, it then becomes very difficult to then change back. And I believe that the single tax rate that we are currently employing is the correct one still for this town. With that being said, then we need to focus on the expenses that we incur. And as I think Shelby said, and as this question maintains, is that, we need to pay for the services we have, and are there services that we don't feel we need? Well, then that's really the only way to reduce the expenses of the town. Our town leaders and managers are very effective and have done a terrific job. And so we do receive a high level of service within this town. But I think it's focusing on each line item and making sure that all that money that is allocated to that line item is appropriate. And then just staying on top of that and then really trying to increase the revenue side of the equation would be the best way for us to hopefully lower the average tax bill for the residents of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Shelby's next. Shelby Marshall.
Right. So I would not be in favor of a dual tax rate for the reasons previously stated, so I won't repeat those in this time. What I would like to see, I think our town departments are led by great managers and leaders, and they're supported by amazing teams that put the heart of residents and businesses first. And so I want to thank them for all of their work. What I would like to see the Board of Selectmen do is to press a little bit more on data-driven decisions. So in private business, you know, if you're going to change a service or modify a service, you do that based on data. And I think that there's a responsibility on the part of the Board of Selectmen to ask for creative solutions and press and create that healthy tension with our town government to make sure that what is being asked for is the most efficient way to deliver the service and the most effective way to deliver it. And I think that that's a natural, healthy tension you have to be comfortable with if you sit in this seat, and I'm very comfortable with that. I think we've done a great job attracting new businesses, significant ones. We offered a tip, to Olympus. We have Amazon, obviously, building out on Otis. We've done a great job to continue that economic growth. I think the hiring decision of our new economic development coordinator is a critical one, because that person is going to play a very forward-facing role in attracting new businesses. And as Mr. Keogh already said, you know, you bring in new revenue, you lower you offset that tax rate on the part of residents. So I think it's not a simple answer, but I don't think we solve our problem by a dual tax rate. Thank you.
Okay. Patrick Welsh. Patrick is next. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, this is not a simple topic. And it's one that I'm still debating about. There's strong arguments on both sides. And I will just say that, again, going back to the situation we're in unbelievable times right now. We're coming out of, hopefully coming out of COVID. There are going to be services, I think, that today exist, but perhaps not to the level that we need them. Mental health services and care for our elderly and people with health concerns that come out of COVID. These are things that we don't even know about, right? We can't foresee. We can only assume that it's going to happen. I think it's critical that we as a board are creative in the way that we approach that. We know today that there are already people in our town, in the senior community, and even the young family community that are struggling with the additional taxes that they're seeing. I, just like everybody else in the town, my taxes have gone up. Am I happy about it? No. But you know what? I know the services are important to others in the community. So I think it's a really tough question the board is going to have to spend a lot of time really talking about. Yes, it is something that if we do change, it would be hard to change back. But I would also say we may be dealing with these issues for a long time. So I'm not entirely convinced that changing back will really be necessary. So it's a great question. And I look forward to working with the rest of the board on figuring out what is best for the town on this.
Okay. And next up, we have Syed Hashmi. Syed, are you ready to go? Thank you.
So as the other speakers have mentioned, the standard thinking has always been that dual tax rate hurts towns. And if you look at our tax assessor does a great presentation to the Board of Selectmen every year around the time. And the benefits of a dual tax rate generally turn out to be marginal at best. Having said that, you have to understand, there, as Mr. Welch so eloquently put, families in our town are struggling. And to me, it's somewhat worrisome and concerning that you have somebody like Amazon moving in, which is now probably one of the most profitable companies in the world, and they're going to be paying about the same tax rate as some poor retiree that's making ends meet on Medicare and Social Security. So is that fair? No. And which then gets me to the point that I was raising earlier. how we look at additional revenues for our town, especially around mitigation for businesses like Amazon moving in, will be critical. And last but not least, we need to look and ensure that these businesses, yes, I want all these businesses to succeed, but ultimately at the end of the day, they need to contribute to the health and well-being and prosperity of our town. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we're going to question 4. And so we have Shelby Marshall, Patrick Welch, Syed Hashmi, Tom Holland, and Sean Keogh. And the question is, what are your thoughts on how the town's leadership might more accurately reflect the diversity of our residents?
Thank you for that question. So I think that our work on, I'm a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and I can say that that work is really just beginning for that committee. We're making progress. It's probably not fast enough for many, but it is progressive, and it is an area that as a town we need to continue to focus on. I think one of the, I'll say easiest ways to do that is to hire creatively. So typically, in municipal government, there are traditional channels of advertising for positions. I would encourage our town manager, assistant town manager, and department heads to look, so to speak, left and right through other channels to see who we might attract that are coming out of the private sector, who bring fresh ideas and new ideas. So that's certainly one. I also think that there are obvious channels out there as well to recruit from a more diverse base. I think that we saw more than ever in our presidential election, particularly with our vice president, the joy and pride that young girls of any color saw when they saw a woman on the stage being sworn in as Vice President of the United States, something that many probably never thought that they would see. That can happen here in Westborough. We've got a town manager who's a female, and she's doing a great job. But I think it's important that we recruit the best people, but make sure we do so in a conscientious way to make sure that we're bringing in as diverse a population as possible. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shelby. With that, Patrick Welsh. Patrick, you're next.
Thank you. So I spent time living in countries around the world as a minority. And when I moved to Westborough in 1983, I moved from the South. And in the South, I was at best, equal population of white and our Black population. When I moved to Westborough, I didn't see a single non-white kid in the entire school when I moved to town. It was shocking. I'd never seen that before. Today, it's amazing. Our community is so diverse. It's fantastic to see that, and it's great to embrace it. I work in a business where diversity is celebrated. We bring people in from all around the world to work and solve issues of a Fortune 500 company. It's fantastic, and I encourage everyone to embrace. Specific to this question of how do we get people involved, I myself am a mentor for a young family in town that is a minority. And I enjoy that mentorship with them because I learned so much about their culture and what they bring to the town. I will encourage anybody in the town, no matter what their ethnicity, race, socioeconomic, whatever it may be, I encourage them to get involved with the town at every level you possibly can. It's so important that our town government represents the community because it really will make us a stronger community for all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Syed is next. Syed Hashmi.
Yes, well, forgive me if I sound a little sarcastic. Please forgive me well in advance. Every time I come, I constantly keep hearing that we are a town committed to diversity and inclusion. But I have to tell you that, especially as somebody that is of color, getting involved in town, speaking in town is exceedingly difficult. I can tell you from my own experience, false allegations have been raised about me in the Board of Selectmen. I've been asked to resign for raising questions about our Pulte project. But while I'm used to, facing racism and prejudice, at least I am in a position where I can do something about it. There are others in our community that do not have the resources that are available to me. And just more recently, and to me, the issue does not lie within expecting the town's leadership or the town's department to solve this problem. I think certainly is a bridge too far. To me, the hope that I have is ultimately in our residents and in the activism that you have, the intelligence, the integrity that you have. To me, our residents, once you start getting involved and asking for change, demanding change, that is when things are going to get better. And to me, this election offers you a choice of people that do reflect a diverse opinion. Dr. Siddiqui and myself come from very different backgrounds, but we are committed to helping grow Westborough. We're committed, and I've demonstrated that, of in building a town that has a future that is inclusive and ultimately expansive.
Thank you. Thank you, Syed. Tom Dolan's next. Tom, you're up. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Kate. Growing up in Westborough, similar to what Patrick mentioned, in Westborough Public Schools, there were maybe a dozen people of color 20 or 30 years ago as I grew up in town. And it's great to see our town grow and evolve, change over the years, attract different types of people from all parts of the world. Diversity is more than just race, color, and creed. There's diversity of opinions. There's a diversity of desires, hopes, dreams, and where we want to take Westborough. And along those lines, one of the things that my grandfather reminded me back when I was a little kid was that all politics is local. And I think that dovetails with diversity. And our Board of Selectmen needs to be local, and that we're accessible, transparent, and an open channel of communication with people from all levels of town, all neighborhoods of town, all backgrounds. And I was speaking with some of the former board's selectmen members earlier today, actually, and she mentioned that having one-to-ones in a coffee downtown at South Street Diner or at Harry's were the way that you can engage people of different backgrounds, different opinions, and someone who's liberal and conservative can still be friends, even if they strongly disagree on policy. And along those lines, someone who comes from somewhere like Dr. Hashmi, a totally different part of the world than our little bubble of Westborough, Flanders Road, that I grew up on. We've got to get out, and especially as COVID passes, got to get out, get involved with our community, and encourage the diversity, interact with our neighbors. So.
Thank you, Tom. Sean Keogh, you're next.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, certainly this is a topic that requires long-term planning. We are a much more diverse town, as we see, but diversity does not equal equity. And being diverse does not mean that people feel as though they're included. I know that we have strategic priorities and we're finalizing a master plan. And as part of that master plan, we want to include communal spaces where all members of the town can get together. I loved hearing the other night that when some of the elderly participants were asked about a new senior center, and they said, no, what we really want is a community center where we can all be together. And I think the master plan is really going to hopefully help bring people together to feel more included. I know individually there's things that we can all do, but as a Board of Selectmen, we need to set long-term priorities that help accomplish this over the next decade and future. And I hopefully look forward to being able to do that. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to stick with the 4 questions that we originally allocated time for. And the order of the closing will be Sean Keogh, Shelby Marshall, Tom Dolan, Syed Hashmi, and Patrick Welsh. So Sean, you're still up. Sean, you have up to 1 minute for a closing statement. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. At the onset of the pandemic, the town had to make some difficult financial decisions. It is likely as this crisis drags on that there are more difficult decisions ahead. Having spent the last 5 years learning the details of our town budget on the Advisory Finance Committee, first as a member and now as its chair, I'm here to tell you that I am the most qualified candidate to help make these decisions. I now request your vote for the Board of Selectmen, and if I earn the privilege of representing you, I will follow my father's footsteps and do the necessary homework to best inform the decisions that the Board of Selectmen need to make on behalf of the town of Westborough. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. With that, next up is Shelby Marshall. Shelby?
Thank you. Thank you again to Westborough TV and the Democratic Committee for being here tonight and for all the candidates who participated. Once again, I think it's excellent to have a competitive race. It's to the benefit of the town when we do. I want to say that I am committed and I have a proven record of my commitment to the work as a selectman and the willingness to do the work of being a selectman. I'm committed to the economic and social recovery that we need here in Westborough. I respect and welcome debate. I'm accessible to folks. I think I've proven that over time, and that's not just to residents, but also to businesses, and I'll continue that track record. I think over the past 3 years, I've earned your respect. I hope I've earned your respect, and I certainly hope that I've earned your vote so that I can continue the work on your behalf for the town's betterment and for the future of Westborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelby. With that, Tom Dolan's next. Tom? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Kate. And I really want to say that I love Westborough and I love our town's form of government. I think town meeting is the purest form of democracy. But in order for a democracy to thrive, all of the citizens need to participate. And to that end, I encourage everyone, if you're listening to this call, you're probably either already done it or already going to get out and vote, but encourage your neighbors to vote, encourage your family to vote, encourage everybody to get out and vote, because your vote counts, your vote matters, as Shelby's signs say around town. It's so true. So get out and vote, but our participation cannot stop at the ballot box. There are all sorts of opportunities for folks to get involved in town. Check out the town website. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by all of the different ways that you can make our town that much better. I'm excited about the opportunity to serve. I have the drive, energy, enthusiasm, and integrity needed to do the job well. And if you vote for me, I promise you won't regret it.
Thank you. And with that, next is Syed Hashmi. Syed, please.
This is an important town election. Every vote will count in this election, and your vote means a great deal to me. It'll be your vote that will determine a future that is inclusive and expansive, a future that serves the many, or a future where the destiny of this town is chosen by the few to serve the few. If you ask what makes our campaign different, it isn't me, it is you. This campaign is driven by your stories of struggle, your stories of hardship, and your stories of adversity. This campaign is driven by your courage, your hopes, and your trust. You represent all the reasons I'm running and all the reasons why I'm so passionate about the issues that matter to you. The privilege of elected office is not the title. The privilege of elected office is the opportunity to represent you. I pledge to be your voice. I will stand with you, I will fight for you, and I will work tirelessly on your behalf to build a better world for all of us. If you vote for me, it won't be me that'll be elected. It'll be you that is elected. We can only achieve the change when we are the change. This is your campaign for our future. We're just getting started. We can do great things together. Join me in building a better Westborough together. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Welsh is next. Patrick?
Thank you again to Westborough Democratic Town Committee and Westborough TV for putting on such a great event. This is amazing. So great to live in a town with such a great democratic tradition. I would like to also thank all those that are serving now and the work they have done during COVID. It's nothing but Herculean, the effort that they've exuded, as well as the other candidates. As I've been campaigning, I've enjoyed meeting so many diverse residents across the town. We have so many opportunities in front of us to do great things that will resonate long into the future. I will bring years of management and operational skills to the board, and I look forward to collaborating with the board and other members of the community and residents to ensure an inclusive, sustainable community. I will do my best to contribute to our future. I hope that I have earned your vote, and if so, deserve it. You can learn more about me at patrickforwestboro.com. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. This concludes the candidate forum for 2021.